I'm a member of the volunteer group here. SCTC stands for Senior Center Tech Connect, and we're seniors helping seniors with their technology is basically it. I was a marketing guy in real life. I do a lot of writing. I used to do programming, so I was a programmer for a while. As many of you know, I'm a Mac guy, and I will mention that at every turn, but I'll boot Windows if I have to. I actually grew up with computers. This computer over here, which actually fit in a room about this size, was a IBM 1620. It was first released in 1959, and I was exposed to it in high school in the mid 60s. And I just fell in love with this whole computer thing. And I've never looked back. So I'm one of the rare people in our generation that actually did grow up with computers. I like these specifications. The clock speed on this, in other words, how often it would do an instruction, was 1 megahertz. It did 1 million instructions a second. And the memory size on it was 20,000 characters or digits. By comparison, if you look at an iPhone 17, the clock speed on it is 4 billion hertz, 4 gigahertz. That is 4,000 times faster than that room full of equipment. And the storage on that thing, such as it was, 20K on the entry-level iPhone is 256 gigabytes. That's 13.7 million times more storage than that room full of stuff. It's just amazing what's happened. And it's amazing what an iPhone will do to kind of show you that. So I always like to say, hey, are you in the right place? So this presentation is for you if you have an iPhone and you want to start taking some cool pictures. If you're considering an iPhone, or you just came for the excitement. Now, you will see, and this is not going to be a technical presentation on photography, but if you know something about photography, each of the photos that are in here, these are all my photos. They were all taken with an iPhone. And I put down the specifications on each of these photos if you're interested. In this particular case, this thing was taken very fast at 865ths of a second, the ISO 64 with a wide open shutter at f1.78. Let me get rid of these doohickeys up here. Why am I seeing admit things? All right, some stuff on logistics here. And come on, Bobski, you can do this. It's just technology. Okay, there is a lot to take in here. So buckle up. It's going to be kind of crazy. But what I've done is try to put a little star by the things that I think are most important. Things you want to kind of say, oh, okay, this seems like it's something that will help me take photographs. We talked about the handout. You can follow along on your phone if you want, but if you get lost or it doesn't, you can't catch up with it fast enough, just note the page number and we'll come back to it. Now, this is important. Most of you probably by now have upgraded to iOS 26 Tahoe. If you haven't, you're probably on iOS. Miss Sarah, can you make me not co-host? Somehow, don't show this again. Oh, good, don't show this again. If you're not on iOS 26, which is the latest, it came out in October of last year, things are going to look different. They could well be different, but not a whole lot different. So a lot of the stuff still applies. Am I still the host here? I knew this Zoom thing would be a challenge. And I always say, don't be afraid to try stuff. It's only money, right? That you pay for your iPhone. So let's look at the agenda. We're going to talk about iPhone camera technology. We're going to talk about the camera app that's on your phone, some basics of the camera, and then we're going to talk a fair amount about how to take a great shot. And this actually kind of pertains to all of photography, but as specifically for your iPhone. And those of you that know my presentations, I always break it up into two parts. The first part's the not particularly useful but mildly entertaining section. So you can sleep through that if you want because it's not particularly useful. But the other one we'll have a test on. That's the informative and hopefully useful section. And that's really all of this stuff. All right. By the way, all the images in here were generated by AI. And this was actually generated, I had it generate a photo of a woman taking a picture. And then I had it turn it into this kind of cartoon look, which is kind of cool. Anyway, let's start out. Your phone really is a good camera. So I have probably gathered over the last 20 years about $10,000 worth of photography equipment, lenses, a really nice SLR. And today I figure about 998 out of 1,000 pictures I can take better on my iPhone than with all that expensive camera equipment. So I hardly ever lug that stuff around. So we're going to talk about everyday photos. We're not really going to talk about pro kinds of stuff, taking the very last detail and that sort of thing. So the takeaway obviously is you don't need to know everything to take good photos. This was taken using night mode. You can see that the speed, the shutter speed was 10.2 seconds. So it was open for 10 seconds, taken with my iPhone 15. And it's hard to see here, but this is the Comet C2 2023. That's kind of a close-up of that. Night mode is really spectacular. We're going to talk a lot more about it, but it really takes some amazing shots. All right, let's look at the camera technology. Depending on your phone you have, you probably have 2 or 3 lenses in the back. Some phones, like the SE, have a single lens in the back, but it's really 2 in 1, and they treat it almost like 2 different lenses. And the reason they have multiple lenses is because these things can't physically change. You've probably, if you've seen an SLR, or back in the old days, we had the camera, if you push on it, it goes, like that. These can't do that, nor can they change the aperture, the amount of light that's coming into the lens. So they're all fixed. They're fixed pieces of glass. So what they do, these are the 3 on an iPhone 15 Pro. You've got a wide camera, which is the one that's most frequently used, and then an ultra wide camera, which take like this whole room, and then a telephoto camera for taking close up. And when you press the shutter, all the little computers inside your iPhone magically blend the images from those 3 lenses into one photo. That's why it's so cool, because it's got a lot of software that goes along with it. Today's iPhones, you probably heard the term megapixel, have 12, 24, and the later ones have 48 megapixels. So the question is, of course, is what's a megapixel? A megapixel is a byproduct of the sensor that's in the lens in your camera. These sensors are little pieces of semiconductor that when they're exposed to light, they output voltage. And that voltage tells the computer inside there how much light there is. And it also tells it what color it is and things like that. So you can see here, this is a picture going across the Mississippi at Cape Girardeau, Missouri. That right there is a light. See that little light? Those are pixels, right? If you've ever blown up a poor resolution photo, you've probably seen pixels, right? So that's what those are. So a megapixel is 1 million of those. The more megapixels you have, the better the detail is going to be in the shot. It doesn't mean that the shot will be better. It means it will have more detail. And that's what the lens and the sensor, and especially the light, still make a big difference. So you can see here, this one was taken, ISO is a measure of the sensitivity, the amount of light you can see, or the sensor can see. This was taken at 60th of a second at f1.5. And 1.5 means the aperture was almost as wide as it could possibly get. This is going to be a test. I only threw this in here so we could have a test later on. So you guys need to memorize this table. No, the point of this really is that more megapixels give you more detail, but it takes more space in your phone. So you got to compromise between those. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a bit. But generally something in between the lowest and the highest is the best setting there. All right, so we're going to look at the when you open up your phone and you tap on the settings icon, that little gear, and you scroll down a bit, there's a camera. You can select the camera, and it looks like that. This is 4 pages. Okay, so if you scroll, you'll scroll up 4 pages. And there'll also be a test on this. So you need to memorize every one of these buttons here, right? No, we're just going to hit the high points of this and what I consider to be the important ones. So first of all, I call this settings not to fiddle with. And there's a bunch of them, and those are right at the top of the settings thing. Video, if you tap on this, you can see there's a little right arrow there. If you tap on it, it will give you more options for video. This is the default, and unless you're doing something really special, this is what you should have the setting at. Similarly with slow-mo, cinematic, record sound, formats, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about preserved settings. And the volume up, is there one more? And scan QR codes. Leave these all the way they are, because generally they'll give you the best coverage for a reasonable amount of storage that you're saving and that kind of thing. So generally don't fiddle with those. If you do want to fiddle with them, have fun, but who knows what'll happen. All right, so let's talk about formats. I'm going to go back. Oh, I can't go all the way back here. Yeah, I can. So right up in here somewhere is formats. First row. There we go, format. Thank you. It's almost like I don't know what I'm talking about here. My gosh, no. We're going to talk about formats. You may want to fiddle with some of this, but probably not. Yeah, so this is the probably not fiddle with page. Okay, good question. So sorry, Zoom. The question was, is this not to fiddle with? It's sort of to fiddle with page. First of all, there's this thing called high efficiency. That is Apple specific. So if your computer is a PC, a Windows PC, check most compatible, because Windows by default can't read these high efficiency format photos. So who all has a PC here as opposed to Mac? Yeah, so in your settings, check that, check most compatible. All right. The photo mode, you can change. We're talking about megapixels. You can see when I took this snap, mine was set at 24, but generally 12 is enough for kind of everyday shots. Now, if you're going to go out and shoot a beautiful sunset and you're going to blow it up to, the size of this wall, you want that to be 48 megapixels or the most you can get. But remember that when you do that, every time you take a shot, you're using more storage on your phone. Yours might be different if you're, depending on yeah, this is iOS 26, I believe. You may be on 17. Do you? And there's no photo mode. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, sorry, I should have noticed that. The problem is I can't tell. Okay, so the question was, iPhone 13 doesn't have this photo mode, and I thought maybe I made a note of that, but and then there's settings. These are pro settings. I would turn those off for sure, and you may not have those on a 13 as well, right? Okay, this is the confusing part of the presentation. There's a thing called preserve settings, and what it means is to remember or to forget, depending on whether the switch is on or off, the camera settings from shot to shot. Your camera has a bunch of defaults, and if you go in and you change some of the creative controls and the live photo mode, and you change all those, take a couple of pictures, and then put your phone to sleep, come back, those things will be reset back to their defaults. So, for example, and this is a true story, I don't particularly like live photos. And unless by turning this on, what you say is, whatever setting I have live photos on, remember that forever. And in this case, and we're going to talk down the road here a second how to turn that off. I turn off live photos and it remembers it forever. So I'm not taking a live photo ever unless I intentionally want to. Does that make sense? It's really confusing because it's like a double or triple negative, right? If you turn this on, it turns it off if you turn it off over there. But I encourage you, what this does is just say, reset it to normal or remember that whatever setting I have. I do because I want it to remember the state of live photo switch when I take a photo. And in my case, that state is don't use live photo. So that's what's confusing about it. I turn this on so it'll remember that I turned it off, right? That's a hard one to explain. Yeah. No, but you're close. What this says is remember the setting. When after I turn the camera off and I turn my phone off and I turn it back on, remember whatever the last setting was, remember that. Now, if this wasn't on and I turn my phone off and I turn it back on, it's going to revert back to live photo being on because that's the default. And I don't want that. All of these other things, you got to be really kind of anal about what you're shooting to worry about those. But live photo is the one for me, is the one I want set. Sorry.
Depth control, like blurred in the background, is not this.
That also depends on what the settings are. We're going to talk about that here in a bit, about depth control and portrait mode. Yeah. But what this, in this panel, this says, if I were to turn this on and then I was going to take a photo and I said, I do want portrait mode, I want the background to be blurred, it would remember that because I left this on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And when you set those, and this is turned on, it's going to remember how you set those forever until you reset it. Let's talk about that. The question is, why don't you like live photos? Let's talk about that when we talk about live photos, okay? I do like some live photos, but I don't like all my photos to be live photos, right? And we're gonna talk more about that. All right, also in the settings, back in the main settings screen, you should see a composition section. And this turns on some guides to help you when you're composing a photo. In this particular case, for example, the grid. Does anybody know about rule of thirds? Yeah? Good. Photographers. All right. The rule of thirds is, I'm not going to go into it. Here's a Wikipedia article on the rule of thirds, but it's a way of framing things that ostensibly make the shots more appealing. And we're going to talk more about that in a second here. But anyway, when I turn this on, this little grid appears whenever I'm getting ready to take a shot. And if I turn on level, this little line in the middle, it's really a level. And so if I tilt my phone, it's going to say, well, if you want to get the horizon level, for example, you'll line up this, and you can see I didn't quite line this up. You'll line it up with the two lines that are framing it. I do. I like them because I can see some things about what I'm shooting. Now, they don't influence the photo, they influence the composition, right? So if I took a shot of you with my camera like this, the photo would come out with you this way, right? So I would look at the level and say, oh, okay, there we go. I want it level. Oh, oh, yes, thank you. What does mirror the front camera mean? If you take a selfie, it can be backwards, like looking in a mirror. Like the lettering on your T-shirt will be mirrored, right? If you flip this on, it will mirror the mirror and make it bright. Does that make sense? Yeah. I didn't talk about that because we're really not going to talk about selfie shots from the front camera. Oh, there's also a view outside the frame. When you turn that on, it gives you some context for the shot. It shows you more than what's going to be in the shot. And that's so you can kind of frame things so there's not like weird things poking in the side of the shot or something like that. And I turn all of those things on. Sorry, which is off? The question was, do you leave mirror front camera off? Yes, normally you would leave that off. Yep. All right, and then there's the photo capture section. And that's, scroll down, this is the last section. There's a thing called photographic styles, and we're going to talk more about that later. But back in the old days, you could get different kinds of film, for example, and it would give the shot different characteristics. That's what this does. It basically uses a different kind of film for the shot you're taking. And, pardon? No, that's set by the ISO of the, like 400 speed film, 400 speed ISO. It's more the tone. And it actually, in the phone, it's all done in software. It's all programmed. It doesn't have, obviously, there's no film in there. But back in the old days, we had different kinds of foam. Ectochrome, for example, versus Kodachrome would give you a different feel, like warmth. We're going to talk more about this in a second. Different paper, yeah, exactly. Good. The main camera setting depends on the phone model you have. Do you have that on the 13? Yeah, okay. So they started putting that probably in right around there. Is that right? So it must be 15 and beyond. This was hard to do because I don't have all the different models of phones.
Brand new one.
Oh yeah, that would be good. I don't have a brand new one though. The rest, I generally enable all of these things. So we can talk about them later if you want. This is new with iOS 26, lens cleaning hints. It will say, hey, your lens is, and I carry mine around in my pocket all the time, and they get all linty, and it'll give you a hint. But all right, so let's talk now. We're going to jump out of settings, and in your phone, we go to the camera app. This is actually, we're going to take a photo, right? So the first thing is that this is the shutter button, right? You can also use the volume controls on the side of the phone. And down below here, now this is new with iOS 26. I'm not sure what it looks like with 17. You've got two big buttons. You got photo and video. But if you tap on photo, for example, and you can slide it back and forth for different photo settings. And video is the same way. So let's look at those. This is the photos mode button. Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about any of this other stuff anyway, so don't worry about it, okay? I just put it in here to point out that there are different modes for the photo in this particular case. We're not going to talk about any of that. In fact, these two slides are like, these are what we're not going to talk about, right? We're just going to do normal photo mode. Similarly, we're going to talk about normal video mode. We're not going to talk very much about videos. This is more about taking still shots, all right? I think that's that. All right, zooming. You probably all know that you can pinch the screen to zoom in and out, right? Apple calls it a pinch on the screen, which you can pinch or unpinch, I guess, that sort of thing. But you can also touch and hold down here, and it will bring up this volume control or this slider control for zooming in and out. And on iPhone 11 or later, so you guys should have this, you can quickly tap on the setting that you want for quickly zooming in or out. Do you guys have that? Okay, great. So that's something important to remember, is that you're zooming in and out. If you have the chance, get closer to your subject rather than zooming, because this is a digital zoom, which means that you're going to have more pixels, bigger pixels, if you're further away, and it'll be choppy. So try to get as close as you can when you're zooming in. Okay, this is another important thing, manual exposure and focus. This is my little Aussie indie here. If you are taking a shot and you just hold, touch the screen where you want the exposure to be, generally that's the subject. I'm taking your picture, I touch right on your nose, and it will focus and set the exposure for your nose. Now, aim it that way, aim it at the window, right? Now, if you can see some black spot or black space to the side, touch off to the side and you see how it changes the exposure. Touch in a darker spot. What you're doing there is you're manually changing the exposure to suit the target that you're touching. Does that make sense? Yeah, and it's really helpful, especially if you're shooting into light and you don't want the light to be just blown out behind it. Or if you do want the light to be blown out and you want to see a profile or a silhouette of the subject, you can touch on it. Now, if you hold it down, it does what we call exposure lock. And if you hold it down, it'll come up and say AE lock, auto exposure lock. Now, you can move the camera around and it will retain the exposure setting that you locked it on. So if you aim your camera at this dark wall, AE lock it there and come back over to the light, it's going to be all blown out because you exposed it for the dark wall. Does that make sense? Yeah. You can actually just, the question is, will it go away once you take a picture? Yes. You can also just tap it again and it will go away. Now there's also a little sun comes up to the right of this. Once you do an AE lock, you can touch that sun and move it up and down, and you'll see the exposure come brighter and dimmer. So what you're doing is manually changing the exposure. It doesn't do it by a lot. You gotta really move it, but it's fine-tuning the exposure. Everybody get that? Yeah? If you hold it, it will lock. The question is, well, actually, what was the question?
So if I have it, like, for instance, your AE lock, and then I see the little sun, what am I supposed to do?
Touch on the sun and slide your finger up and down. Yeah, the question was, what do I do with the sun? And what you're doing is you're changing either the shutter speed or the aperture or both in order to make it brighter or dimmer. Right. Yeah, we're going to talk about the statement was, so you're making it brighter or dimmer. We're going to talk more about exposure settings here in a minute, because there are other ways to do exposure setting. But, sorry, what? Yeah. Does it not do it? You guys would make me have to think. I hate that when that happens. Yeah, oh, yeah, the AE lock goes away, but the focus stays there. The autofocus stays there. So how do you make that go away? I just tapped outside. Yep, it goes, the comment was it goes away after a few seconds. Oh, I've learned something already. This is great. All right. So there are a bunch of other controls. And again, this depends on your phone. Night mode is the coolest one. And it only shows up there if the camera thinks it's dark enough to invoke light mode. And if you want to try that, you could probably set your camera. There you go, exactly, yeah. So Zoom people, someone in the audience covered their camera and sure enough, the night mode came on. it only comes on if it's needed, like it's dark, right? And then there's a bunch of additional controls. Sorry, what? No, the question was, will it automatically flash if night mode is on if it's dark? Only if you have the flash set to be automatic. And you know what? I don't have anything in here about flash. We're not going to talk about that. I generally turn flash off. Oh, it's already on. Okay, so the comment was we're in the dark end of the room and our night mode's on automatically down there. It's automatically. The question is, should you leave it on and it will come on automatically when it thinks when it's dark enough. Yeah. All right, so let's look at some of these additional controls. And there are a zillion things in here. And I figured we would spend all afternoon if we went into all of them. We're going to talk about timer, live. Oh, there we go. Live, timer, and styles. So somebody was asking about live earlier. This is one of the ways you change it. I'm going to back up. You can also see here that live is on that control. And that's in the upper right panel of your camera. Oh, yeah, it should be. Yeah. Live photos have been around for a long time. Yeah. Did you get it? Everyone, okay. So the settings for live mode are, and you just toggle through these, are on, which says every shot will be a live shot. Automatic, in which the phone tries to decide whether it's going to be a live shot or not. And since I leave it off most of the time, I've never seen how well this works. But live off says always a normal still photo. So this is a good place to talk about live photo. Well, maybe I've got somewhere I'm going to talk about live photos, but just in case. When you have live enabled and you touch the shutter, it builds a little video that's 3 seconds long. 1.5 seconds of that is before you touch the shutter, believe it or not, which has an implication. It's always, when live mode's on, it's always storing 1.5 seconds. And it's not storing it internally in the storage of your phone. It's in the chip that's recording that eventually gets put in storage of your phone. So there's nothing being recorded there that could be saved anywhere. But there's 1.5 seconds before the shutter was touched and 1.5 seconds after the shutter was touched. And that is, I know I'm going to talk about it later in here somewhere. It's really good for, let's say, taking a picture of the kids and you're not sure what their facial expression is going to be. Because it'll snap one and, you know, all their eyes are closed. Well, you can manually go back in and search for the frame that you want where their eyes were open. And that's a good thing. Live photos do take more storage than normal photos. In fact, when it first came out, I firmly believe that Apple invented this just so you use more iCloud storage. I still believe that, but it's still kind of cool. All right, timers kind of it's kind of obvious. It sets a timer. And if you tap on this, it will go from 3 to 5 to 10 seconds. Oh, I forgot to show you guys what I've brought here. This is a little tripod, right? So your phone clips in this. So I heartily recommend this. Really inexpensive on Amazon. But if you're taking a photo of the family reunion and you want to be in it, you set the timer to 10 seconds. That's if you don't have an Apple Watch, because you can fire the camera with your Apple Watch. And you run out and get in the picture and it's taken. So that's what the timer is for. And you almost have to have some kind of tripod I remember a photo. Oh, I'm getting off in the weeds. We ended up with a photo of everybody's feet in the air because I ran over to the bench and sat down and our feet were in the air and took the picture. So there's a little danger in that. And it's good for group shots that you want to be in. All right, and then there's styles, and styles are, I mentioned earlier, they're applied during the capture, so you can't take them out later on. And generally, it's for changing the tone and the warmth. Now, the iPhone software is set up because the AI in the phone knows when it's looking at a face, and it knows what skin tone is supposed to be. So it will adjust everything but the skin tone to make it warmer or cooler, but it won't mess with the skin tone, which is kind of cool. I go back and forth on this. Many professional photographers will pick a style, and if they have, for example, an SLR, you can do this in the firmware, in the menus of the camera, and you'll pick a style and you'll just stick with it. You'll say, whatever I shoot, it's going to have this tone, and it can be warmth or whatever. So it's something that you generally, if you set it, you probably aren't going to change it, and it's not that dramatic. These are the styles that, and these, by the way, in post-production, we call fix it in post, right? In post-production, there are filters which do the same kind of thing as styles. So, but you can't confuse the two because they're used for two different things. So this is what it looks like. This is taken from the backyard, right? Looking southwest. So this is standard, and you can see my lawn looks all dried out. This is what they call rich, warm, vibrant, warm, and cool. When you set one of these, it's the natural tone of all the shots you take, no matter what you're taking. Mine, generally, I set to rich, warm. It's just rich, warm in the background. So a lot of people, and I go back and forth on this because you're saying, well, the software may modify the image from what your eye would see, and that's contrary to true photography, right? So you may want it just standard. But yes, it does not. That's the thing that it doesn't do, is it knows what faces are. It knows what flesh tones are, and it keeps them flesh tony. And you can fiddle with this and see. It does stay there. Yeah. Once you set style rich, warm. Now, back when we showed you that menu, it will be yellow. It will show you yellow, and that tells you that setting is set different than the default. All right. Now we're going to talk. I love the comment here. Is there a button to replace the photographer? You know. Yeah. Well, you might ask. I do have my microphone on. Might ask Daryl if he's getting audio.
Yeah,
so taking a great shot.
We are, sure.
And the first rule of photography is that the light matters. And you can see here, I'm trying to figure out where I took that shot. I could find on the, if I went and looked in the photos, it would tell me where it was taken. I think I was in Texas somewhere. And the good light matters more than anything else. You know, it controls the mood, the depth, the color, the whole bit. And obviously side or soft light usually works better than harsh overhead light. And you know this, if you've been out on a bright sunny day around noon and you try to take a picture, it's a good picture because you got a lot of light, but it's flat because there's no shadows or anything like that. You know, who knows about the golden hour, right? The golden hour is sunrise or sunset and you can see here, this is a sunset, is the ideal time to take photos. If you want to take a bunch of photos of the family for history, go out in the very early evening, just before the sun sets, and start taking the photos at that time. And this is even with the phone even with the phone on full auto, you still get to choose the light. So you're still the photographer. You're making a lot of difference by just telling it or pointing the direction where the light is best. And you can see here, the direction matters more than the brightness. And the reason for that is pretty simple. The camera can make up for brightness. It can open the aperture, or it can slow down the shutter speed, but it can't make up for the direction. And you can see here the light's coming from this side one of my daughters here is a natural model, I guess. And natural light's almost always better than artificial light, especially things like this. Somebody asked me about the flash earlier. I try to never use the flash. It's just way too harsh. Now you can use it if you're a distance away. Let's say the doors. I've got some people over there. I can force the flash on, and it's what we call a fill flash. What it'll do is it'll fill in a little bit of the dark spots in the shot, and it won't wash it out, but it'll make it a little softer. But generally, I don't turn the flash on. And we talked about manually adjusting the exposure by touching on the screen where you want the exposure. And just as you're composing it, if you have time, you might try a few different spots to see what happens. If I touched over here, her face would darken up a lot because it's exposing for the brightness. If I touch on her nose, it's going to brighten it up, and it might brighten it up so much that it would wash out the background. So you kind of have to toy with it as you're taking the shot. By the way, I think this is one in the handout. There's a bunch more bullets about light in there. We talked about night mode a little bit. Night mode is it captures light over. It's what we used to call a long exposure, right, or a time exposure. And the way these cameras work and the software works is it will take the shot over time, and then we'll blend all those shots together into one photograph. You can see, and this may be hard to see, this is the Milky Way right here. We had a campfire over here. So this light, over 10 seconds of exposure time, the light from the campfire lit up the rock here. And that was actually taken without a tripod or anything. The other thing the camera will try to do is stabilize the shot. Now, if you have a normal old-fashioned camera, it won't do this. You'll end up with blurry shots every single time because you just flat can't hold it steady enough. But the iPhone's got so much software in it that it will stabilize the shot for you. I did. The question was, did I hold it still for 10 seconds? I did. As still as I could hold it. The camera made up for the rest by stabilizing the shot. If I had done this with an SLR for 10 seconds, it would be blurry as could be, because there's no way I could hold it absolutely tripod still for 10 seconds.
Sorry, where do you find
Night mode will come on if it's dark enough. Lay your phone down on it. There, yeah, there's night mode. And it's telling you, the question was, how do you find night mode? It's telling you that I'm going to do a 5-second exposure based on what I see right now, which is the top of the table.
So it's not a menu thing that you search for?
Correct. It pops up if it's dark enough. And in fact, if you took this shot right now, it's saying to him, hold still for 5, 4, 1, shot. And
Obviously, it's
the shot,
black is black.
yeah. There's the picture. It's up top of the table. It's black. Question? Yes.
Shutter takes a long time. It takes that's going to happen, and then you can hold it still and take another shot.
Correct. So the statement was, if you
Don't know it.
if you don't know that it's in night mode and you just hold it here, or you don't hold it still, or you swing it while the shutter's open, and then you realize, oh, this could be a night shot, just hold it still. Yeah, it will attempt to stabilize the picture through software if it can, but sometimes it can't. And I say intentional night mode shots can be, when I was looking for this, I found a fair number of shots that I've taken. I'm sort of an amateur astronomer of the Milky Way, and that's a 10-second shot with a high ISO. This 8000 is a high ISO. That means that the camera is going really hard trying to see light, right? And you can see that the aperture was wide open here as well.
Where do you find?
This, you have to look at the photo after it's taken. So the question was, how do you find this information? And in fact, I went to my photos album. By the way, that's another whole class about organizing your photos, but come see us. Yeah. The Mac has, oh, some of your PC people. The Mac, the best app on the Mac is the Photos app. It's amazing. It uses AI and you can find, I have 46,000 photos on there and I can find any of them pretty much in a few seconds. So the question is, are we going to have that class again? Miss Sarah, oh, you have the whole thing memorized. I don't think we're doing it this summer. We'll do it in the fall though, or we might do a special one. Oh, so the question was, how do you find this information if you just have a phone? Go to the Photos app and look at the photo and tap on it. And there's a little, oh, we're going to talk about that. I'm sorry. We're going to talk this much about it. But yes, you'll see this in a second. All right, composition. So how do you frame the shot? That's obviously another, what do you say? It's a talent. It's not scientific. You have, obviously, you decide on the subject, you intentionally place it. If you can get closer, don't zoom, and watch the background. So, you know, if this was over a little bit where the light was, I don't know, you can get aberrations where you have like antenna sticking out of the hat or something like that. So pay attention to the background, not just the subject, but what the background is doing to the subject. So use the rule of thirds here, like that. Oh, so what do you think was the most important part of this shot? Yeah, blurring the background. This is a portrait shot. The face. It was actually the hat. And if you look at the rule of thirds, we line that up on that third, and that gives you the most important part of that shot. Now, I won't deny that my daughter's face is, you know, beautiful, but the hat was really the most important part of that shot. So go look up rule of thirds and play with it. I probably don't have to say this. Well, we talked about it earlier. I keep my phone in my pocket. It gets all linty. So you can get these your optometrist probably has these microfiber cloths. They don't shed. If you use, and I do this all the time, I use a Kleenex and it ends up with Kleenex bits all over the lens, right? You can't do that. So use this microfiber lens. And you can use cleaner on the cloth. I do occasionally put a drop on the lens and use a Q-tip or something, but try not to get the lens directly wet. And it really doesn't take long. And okay, that's a better shot, right, than that. Now, this is obviously an exaggeration, but I thought I'd make the point. So what's a live photo? And this is where we were going to talk about a live photo. And it's about 3 seconds of video, even though it doesn't show up as video in your, it actually might if you move a live photo to a PC. I don't know, it might show up as a video on a PC. So you press and hold the live button, and then later on in post, as we say, in the Photos app, you can choose which frame you want. So it is a slightly larger file size. I took this accidentally. This is a live photo, and you can tell because when you see it, it's got live up here. And it's best for moments when there's milliseconds of timing are important. And it is a waste of space for landscape or static scenes. So if I'm just taking a picture of Long's Peak, it's a waste of space. And frankly, it irritates me if I get a picture of Long's Peak that goes like this. I'm like, no, just turn it into just a photograph. Yes. When you send, I'm sorry, when you send it to an Android. So the question is, what happens? My guess is it comes up to be a video clip, a .mp4 video clip. We'll have to try that. I haven't tried that. Yeah, I'm going to talk about this here. Anyway, so this is, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like this in my photos album. It looks all in the world like this, but it says that it's live. And notice how this is jiggling around ahead of time, because I didn't know I was taking a picture. I said, oh, okay, I'm going to take a picture, held it, popped it as the fire exploded, and it captured part of me moving the camera, because that's the 1.5 seconds in front of me pushing the shutter button. So this is my pyro brother-in-law. But that looked all in the world like this was not a video. I just snapped the shutter and it took a live photo. Oh, yeah. So the comment was you were at a Civil War reenactment and you didn't know when the cannon was going off, so you just snapped a live photo and you were able to capture the cannon go. You didn't know they did that. Well, that's perfect. That's being a good photographer. I didn't know what was going to. Don't tell anybody. Just say, yeah, I did this on purpose. Okay, so if you do have a live photo, and I will wager to say everyone here, if you have a Mac, you've got live photos. If you've transferred these over to a PC, I don't know what it'll look like. It's probably a little video clip. But on your phone, if you take a live photo, this is done on your phone, what you do is you open the photo in the Photos app. It will say live up here, right? And then you tap on this, it brings up this little menu, and you can do things like loop it or bounce it where it goes like that. Or turn it to log exposure, which it stretches it out. But just turn live off. And you can always revert back to having it live. And I think when you turn it off, it asks you which frame you want to use. We might have to fiddle with that. I can't remember where you can tell it which frame.
You have to do this every live photo, not like setting that you can turn. I hate live photos myself.
Yeah, so the comment was, do you have to do this for every, you have to do it for every live photo you've taken up to today. Okay. In the future, make sure that preserve settings switch is on in the settings, and you turn live photo off when you take the photo, and it will remain off. Okay, but for all the pictures you take from then on, you will have live photo off. The question was for just that photo, and if you have this setting, you have to have this setting on. Right, so excellent. So the comment was, she did not have preserve settings turned on, it was turned off, which means every time you open your camera, live is on, because that's the default. And you would have to turn it off if you consciously didn't want live photos. That's why that double negative preserve setting things is there, right? Okay, close-up shot. Somebody asked about macro. So the 13 to 15 is only on the Pro models. And I think that means it's got all 3 cameras. So if you have a 13 Pro or a 15 Pro, mine is a 15 Pro. So it's got all 3 cameras. And I took this this is me composing the shot. You can see I've got the rule of thirds guides up there. And this little light comes up and says, hey, I'm going to take this in macro mode. Let's see. And what you have to do is you have to kind of move in gently to get it as large as you want it. And then you have to hold still, because this was pretty slow. This was at a 60th of a second. It still probably wouldn't blur. It'd probably blur a little bit. So you can see it takes a fairly long exposure. And when you're doing this, you have to be careful. And I know we've all faced this. You're trying to take a picture of something and the light's above and behind you and the shadow of the camera is right on what you're trying to take a picture of. You have to kind of, don't do that. I don't know how you get out of it, but don't do that. So anyway, these are the models that support macro. So that's the shot I ended up with. This is a 4:3 ratio. In other words, the profile of the photo is 4:3, so you can see it. And it turned out pretty good, actually. And you can also see the depth of field. The depth of field is where the focus is. If you have a shallow depth of field, it means that everything this side of the where it's focused and everything that side will be blurred. And traditionally, that's done with a real wide aperture. If you have an old camera and you open the aperture up wide, you get a real shallow depth of field. If you take a picture of Long's Peak, the aperture is tight, the speed is fast, and the depth of field is almost infinite. In other words, everything between me and the camera is in focus, or me and the camera and Long's Peak is in focus. And that's a long depth of field, a wide depth of field. On this, you can see, and it's because the aperture is so small, but right up here is all of a sudden getting blurry. So I focused on that pedal right there. Correct. In these models, it will switch for you, but it has to sense that. And that's why we talk about move the phone slowly towards the subject. It has to be going, oh, we're really close to this. In fact, it looks like he wants to use macro, and it flips into macro mode. Yeah, I didn't restate that question. Is macro mode, it comes on automatically, was the question. All right, so after we take the shot, so this is the picture I took from the back porch here, and there's a bunch of settings. And we're not gonna go into a whole lot of detail of what happens and how to file your photos and stuff, because like we said earlier, that's another whole class. There's a bunch of buttons down at the bottom here, and there's share, mark as a favorite, get info, and we were talking about that a moment ago, and settings, and then of course you can trash it. If you click on this, you'll go back to the camera. If you return to the camera app, if that's how you got here. So the share button, and this is common across all Apple devices, but certainly on your phone across apps, that little box, I'm gonna go back. This little box, this little logo here, the box with the arrow, it means share in everywhere on your phone in all kinds of different apps. It does literally give you a zillion ways to share the photo. And the most common way is you're texting it or emailing it or adding it to an album in your photo library. Less common, you seriously can do this. I can take a picture of my computer, hit the share button, scroll down, and it says, look this up on Amazon. And it will look up computers because I just took a picture of it. I tried this. I couldn't believe it. It's crazy. You can create a face for your watch. So if I took a picture of my computer, I could say, I want that to be the face of my watch, which is kind of cool. Search on Google. You can say, I just took a picture of Long's Peak. Tell me what it is. And it will go out to Google, do a reverse image search, which is what we call it. They'll find all the pictures of Long's Peak, and it will tell you that it's Long's Peak. It's amazing. Pardon? Yes, it will show you the pictures. We can do this if we have time when we're done here. How late are we supposed to go? 4? So about 5:30, start telling me to wrap it up. Okay, great. The get info button is pretty cool. And this also falls in line with that. You can see there's a little eye down there. And it gives you extended information. And it allows you to change the date and time and location if for some reason you chose to do that. And if you see this little sparkle here, see that little sparkle? It says, I know more about this image. It uses AI to examine the image and says, I know more about this image. And in fact, in this particular case, it said, look up Australian Shepherd, right? So this is another one of my little pups. This is Bluey. It said, this is an Australian Shepherd. And if you click on that, sure enough, it will take you to a Google search for Australian Shepherd. It also tells me, you can see here is a 12 megapixel picture. It's 3:4 aspect ratio. It only takes 1.8 megabytes of memory. Vibrant warm was the style that I was using. I told you I usually leave that way. And it shows me where County Road 7 and County Road 20 and a half. It shows me where that picture was taken. So these little lines, we're going to talk about that in the next slide. Very good lead in here. It's called edit, and it allows you to edit. Yes. 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 So the statement was, if you're trying to identify a plant or an insect or an animal or a mountain, even codes on your dashboard, and laundry codes in your tag, laundry tags. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? That's, yeah. Uh-oh. So Jan said when she did an upgrade, it went away. Come see us. We'll fix it. All right. Edit. I don't want to use the word zillions again, but it will give you a zillion ways to change the attributes of your photo. There is a thing called the magic wand right here. So if I click on this, it looks like a little settings thing. It brings up the edit panel. And these, if you scroll through these are all the things you can change. This is exposure, this is contrast, and seriously, there's 15 or 16 other attributes you can change in the photograph. But if you tap the magic wand, it uses AI to try to make the picture most appealing, right? And 99 times out of 100, it does just that. If I went in there and manually went through and changed all these things, I cannot do as good a job as the magic wand does for making those pictures. So if you have a picture that's, kind of not quite right, it doesn't have the right color, or it's too dark, magic wand it. Yes. So this is in the Photos app. I should make that a lot more clear here. When you save it, you will save it with all these edits, but it always retains the original. And you can go back in, bring up the settings and say, revert to original, and it will undo all of the edits that you've made to it. That's one of the cool things about the Photos app, both on your phone and on the computer, is it always retains the original shot. So you can fiddle with it all day long and then still restore it. Some more edit things. So you can adjust the light and color. You can crop and straighten it, right? You can apply filters. Now filters, is there a filters thing here? One of these is filters. That's different than the styles. Filters are, well, as we say, done in post-production. You can go apply filters for warmth or for noir if you want to make it black and white, and you can always undo those. As opposed to a style, you can't undo a style when you take the shot. Yes. The question was, if you use the magic wand, does it do all these at once? Yes, it does. It somehow tries to balance all of these things. No, there's not, because it depends different. There's no magic formula, was a statement. It depends on every shot. It's going to be different. But if you do use the magic wand and you come in and look at each of these, you can see what the settings are. You can see how it changed. And furthermore, I don't have that in here, you can actually save that set of settings and apply them to other photos without using the wand. You'll say, oh, I want to save, I like the way it adjusted this. You can use it on other photos. So the question is, when you use the magic wand, does it save it? Well, yeah, you have to hit somewhere up here. Oh, you have to hit done. Yeah, if you say cancel, it'll unwind whatever you did, including the magic wand. Yeah. Whoever said that, thank you. And again, I emphasize the original image is always retained. So it doesn't hurt to play with an image, which is really reassuring because you might make all the reds green and all of a sudden it looks awful and you're like, oh, no, you can revert it back. Sorry, I didn't hear that. The blue check. I'm not sure I understand your question.
When they come up. Send, whatever. Check.
Oh, the share button? The share button, the up arrow? Nope. What starts it is, I wonder if I can use the laser on this. No, I can't. What starts it is that button right there. Yeah, yeah. What you asked before, that's the settings button. There's some other controls up here. I call it choose the disposition. In other words, I can do some other things with the photo itself, like probably, yeah. You can add it to a slideshow. You can add it to an album. You can change some metadata. You can duplicate it if, for some reason, you want to create a copy of it. And
what does the delete? Not the original, but just your edited version?
nope, it deletes the edit. It deletes the original. Yeah, when you say delete, you're deleting it. But it moves it in the trash can and then it's kept for 30 days. So in the Photos app, there's a deleted photos. What do they call it? Come on, Bobski, you can do this. Yeah, it's called recently deleted. It's one of the views that you get. And if you go in there, you'll see all the photos now that you recently deleted. And it's a sliding window of 30 days. So if I delete a photo today, 30 days from now, it'll be deleted. If I deleted it 15 days ago, 15 days from now, that one will be deleted. So it's a sliding window on each picture. Yes. So the comment was, yeah, the comment was I accidentally deleted a photo and I shook my phone. That applies anywhere on a phone. This is called undo. If I'm typing something and I back up a bunch and erase something I don't want, I shake it and it will undo. That applies everywhere on a. That's one of those little known things about an iPhone. Yeah, but that's a good point. If I accidentally delete it, you can. People see me shaking my phone and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm undoing it, right? Yeah, it applies anywhere that you've taken an action, you can undo it. Yeah, if you're writing an email. So I keep my grocery list on notes on my, and if I check something and then I'm like, oh, I really didn't get that, I will shake it and it will uncheck what I checked. Just the last thing that you did, yes. Oh, we're almost getting done here. So things we didn't get to, if you have AirPods, you can actually use your AirPod to snap a photo. So if I stick it over here on the tripod and I walk back, I can snap the photo that way, or I can snap it with my watch. So that beats trying to set the timer and running back and forth. But you obviously got to have those products.
Doesn't matter.
I don't know exactly how that works. The question was, does it matter which side? I can't answer that. I don't know exactly how. I don't have AirPods, but I know people that have, but I didn't ever ask them about which side. On the watch, actually, it's part of the control panel. One of the control panels right there. See that little camera? I could take a picture with my watch. Well, I'm snapping the shutter on the camera with my watch. Yeah. burst mode, you can, there's a mode, and I have it turned off because I don't want to take 500 photos accidentally. But you can set it to where one of the buttons on the side, if you hold it down, it just goes, and it takes about 20. Oh, there, it's taking photos. Using your watch, that was great. Let's say you're at a ski race, right? Hence the term bob ski. You might just want to go, and then later on, you're going to say, oh, this one was the one I want, and you just delete the rest. Yeah, and it's taking still photos every, well, 10th of a second or 20th of a second.
They're hard to-
Yeah, so the comment was they're hard to see. Well, you could load them on your computer and you see them as, 100 different photos and you just pick it out. But, yeah, or just take a chance and pick one. That's one of the options you can select. It said delete all the other photos. Yeah. We didn't talk about spatial. That has to do with depth of field and portrait mode. We didn't talk about time lapse or slow-mo, but this is, I had my camera, my phone on that tripod on my picnic table out back. This is the sun setting over, it's about an hour over 13 seconds. And the phone, what it's really doing is about every 30 seconds or so, it's taking a picture, and then it blends it all into a video. So that's called time lapse. And those are really fun to play with. I mean, if we set the camera up here and we time lapse this whole presentation, it'd see everybody moving around and see, we could see Elmer falling asleep and waking back up. So time lapses are fun. Slow-mo is also cool. This is another one of my Aussies. Cooper is a little bit not too coordinated. So there's a ball and he missed it. Poor Cooper. But he got right back up and went after again. But slow-mo is also a lot of fun to take. Like I have pictures of my daughter's chopping wood, and it's interesting to watch the axe come down and the wood go. Well, that's kind of cool. I think that's, and panos. Has anybody taken panos? Yeah. So panos are cool. You try to keep the phone pretty level as you go along, and it's taking a whole bunch of pictures, and then it automatically stitches them together, and you can see that's what that pano looks like.
Well, friends, that's a wrap. We hope you've enjoyed this video today. Hey, before you go, if you like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to know when the latest SCTC video comes out, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. And if you have any ideas or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to leave a comment below. We'll see you next time.